Hello and welcome to World Talks on TVP World with me, Ashim Kumar. As Europe tightens sanctions on Moscow, the 19th EU package bans Russian LNG imports by 2027 and expands penalties to Chinese and Central Asian firms aiding Russia's oil trade. Yet, leaders failed to finalise a plan to use €140 billion in frozen Russian assets to finance Ukraine. Meanwhile, London's coalition of the Willing summit reaffirmed Western military backing for Kyiv. Joining me is Martin Sklenár, former Slovak defence minister, to discuss Europe's next steps in supporting Ukraine. Minister, welcome back to TVP World. Thanks for taking the time.
Good evening.
So your initial thoughts on the 19th package of sanctions, level of effectiveness?
Well, I'm quite positive about the sanctions package. It's crossing a threshold that might have looked like Europe is not really eager to cross. And this means there's momentum also in Europe, because it seems that there is momentum across the West to push on Vladimir Putin, to actually bring him to the negotiating table. We have seen that the various changes of the US government and President Trump. We see now the coalition of the Willing, they're meeting in London, and we see the sanctions package also at the European level being adopted, which all of these basically go in the same direction, create as much pressure as possible, because it is very obvious that Vladimir Putin has no reason and also no will to stop the military actions and the war in Ukraine and come to a negotiating table. So this is the West showing that we are changing the game now, and we will be putting even more pressure on you to come to negotiations.
Yes, but I mean, this is the 19th package, Minister, and yet somehow Putin has managed to get his oil out. Somehow he's managed to fund the war for all these years. What is going to make this one more effective? In other words, does it have teeth, and how's it going to be enforced?
Well, the imports of Russian LNG into Europe, those are quite significant still, despite the situation and the other sanctions that are in place. So this is a very important step on the European scale of not escalating, but basically balancing or coming to the level of conflict that Russia has already posed on Ukraine. We have seen a similar step on the US side with their sanctions targeting customers of Russian oil and gas in Asia, and we have seen quite quick reactions by those customers adjusting their buying standards from Russia. So it looks like the sanctions don't have any effect until they do, right? This is the 19th package, which shows you that there's a very steady progress in the sanctioning of very specific persons and entities. So it makes sense, and it targets the incomes of the state. It targets the people more closest to Putin, and limits the impacts on the population as such, because that's not something that the sanctions are destined to, or their objective is to basically squeeze the government and the regime in Moscow and in the Kremlin, and save as much as possible collateral damage to the population.
Right.
So what we see is an escalation through the packages, and this one is actually a significant one.
Did it surprise you, Minister, that there were sanctions imposed both on China and on Central Asian countries, both of which, well, China is buying Russian oil and Central Asian countries are processing and shipping it? Did that surprise you? And again, how is that going to be enforced?
What is less traditional, let's call it, is the back and forth that we see from the U.S. administration, especially President Trump, where he's he's basically giving Vladimir Putin a chance to come to the table, then it seems like he believes that there is a possibility, and then at some point he realizes that this is all just a game, and he wants to cut his losses and basically strengthens his position and tries to put more pressure on Vladimir Putin and Russia. This is exactly what we see now, and the periods between the positions where they seem favorable for peace negotiations, and then economic pressure or other pressure seem to be shorter and shorter. So this pendulum swings a little bit more than what we are used to. So in that sense, the decision of the U.S. to put those entities or put out these sanctions on Russian oil and gas at this moment is certainly something that is a little surprising.
Okay, I'd like to move on now to the 140 billion euros of Russian assets which have been frozen in Belgium. Does it surprise, perhaps disappoint you, that no agreement has been reached on how to use that to support Ukraine's war effort?
Well, certainly, if there was a decision yesterday or today, it would be much better for Ukraine and its ability to continue defending itself against Russia's aggression. But I wouldn't be too negativistic about the decision. Yes, the European Council has decided to, so to say, kick the can down the road and come back to the decision based on options that the Commission is supposed to draw up. But that doesn't mean that this is already over, and the options, it still can be the most the most important option of making that resource or those resources available for Ukraine, for its financial and even military sustainability in this difficult time. So obviously, this is a very sensitive issue for some countries, and the European Union has to make sure that all of the countries, especially the ones who are holding some of the assets that have been frozen, that they are comfortable with this, not only legally but also politically, and they can build the case also to their populations that this is something that is safe and will not incorporate them or involve them in the conflict in a much bigger way than what has already been established right now. So I think the time that the Commission is or the European Union, the European Council is taking now is a function of making sure that we have the best possible options available for a decision, and also giving some time to the countries who need the time to make sure that this is not imposed on anybody in European Union.
Okay, well, very, very quickly, if you would, we are running a little short on time. I'd like to get your view on the meeting of the Coalition of the Willing in London, which is taking place as we speak. And one of the key things that Prime Minister Keir Starmer of the UK is saying, that Ukraine should be provided with long-range missiles. Your thoughts?
This is a very important signal, not only from the Coalition of the Willing, but also from the US. And we have to give credit to President Trump here, opening up the possibility of sharing those weapons with Ukraine is something that Vladimir Putin has to have on his mind and should not be sure about whether or not this is possible. I would expect that the Coalition of the Willing and President Zelensky discuss this in London tonight, and they will come hopefully with a strong signal of allowing Ukraine to use the European version of those weapons, the Storm Shadows and the Scalps, because Ukraine has already used them in the past and has shown that it's able to use these weapons responsibly against military targets, legitimate and legal military targets, and can usefully use them for increasing their level of defense and holding Russia back from taking more and more territory. What it needs now is to use these kind of weapons to basically push Russia a little bit more in the places that Russia seems to be targeting for more military operations, where it sees a chance of breaking through the front line. and therefore I hope there will be a strong signal from London on this.
And the sooner the better. Minister Sklenár, thank you very much indeed for sharing your time and analysis with our audience. Have a good evening, sir.
Thank you very much. You too.
Thank you. Well, that brings us to the end of this episode of World Talks, but as always, don't go away. Lots more coming up. Goodbye.